Today on the Get Your Shift Together podcast, we are with Lorelei on the show, and of course, Michele as well. Michele and Lorelei, we know it's been a challenging time for women's rights in recent weeks, and we wanted today to discuss the unique experiences during COVID that working mothers have been facing and are facing as they return to the office or to a hybrid work environment or whatever that may look like. Lorelei, since you're new to the show, could you introduce yourself to both myself and the listener?
Hello, Jordan. Thanks for having me. My name is Lorelei Wilder, and I'm a director of customer success at a software company. And I'm happy to discuss our topic today.
And one of the most important aspects, Lorelei, is you're a mom.
I am a mom, yes.
You're a mom.
I have a 5-year-old.
A
Which
5-year-old.
both Jordan and I, sorry, Jordan, both Jordan and I can not claim motherhood as a status symbol. So I wanted to make sure that you were claiming that.
That's my expertise today. Yes, I'm a mother. I have a 5-year-old. I also have a grown daughter who has moved out and married. So,
see, so success and on the way to success. So there you go.
Yeah, you can really speak about it from both ends of the spectrum there. Yeah. Michele, I know you coach many working mothers, and you bring a valuable perspective to this conversation as well. What have you been hearing from women leaders as they have got through COVID in the last 2 years? And have you been hearing, I guess you've heard Lorelei's success story, and I guess that's a positive in terms of where we can go with this discussion.
Yeah. So I always find it interesting when I approach the subject of working moms, because I am not a mom. And so I'm always very conscious of my limited perspective. Now I'm mom adjacent to many wonderful, wonderful women. I have 6 beautiful nieces, all well on their way in their own careers right now. And that's why I guess passionately I think this topic is so critical at this time, because the answer to your question of what have I been hearing, the one word that would sum it up is capital O, overwhelm. And my experience as a 57-year-old woman who has navigated many chapters of her career, and it's hard enough. It's still difficult in 2022. It's still difficult being a woman, whether we like to acknowledge it or not. In corporate America, we still face many challenges, and certainly during the pandemic. And I think we're on that side of learning how to live with a pandemic. I've had the privilege of speaking to many powerful, bright, intelligent, energetic, tenacious women who happen to be mothers. And it has, in recent weeks in particular, Jordan, I would say it has really broken my heart to hear the degree of overwhelm. And I would say one of the things that is really driving this sense of overwhelm, like a foundational piece of driving the overwhelm, is that they're not seen and understood. And what I mean by that is the unique set of challenges that come with being a working mother. They don't feel that people really understand and create space for that and make it okay. And that is what truly, I don't say this lightly, has really been heartbreaking. I know I'm rambling a bit, but I just want to give you some context in that I've just finished a large project for my longest term client and my largest client. And I had the privilege of speaking to many, many, many people. And the working moms came in and just sort of let down their guard in front of me. And this is a really powerful organization. It's a great organization, is what I mean by powerful. Like, they're very conscious of their employees and really have been working tremendously hard through COVID to create a good space. And there's this aspect to working moms and the pressure that they have felt that I think we need to give even more space and time to, so that we can actually make movement and set leaders up to help with the overwhelm. And then I will add that Lorelei was one of the bright stories that I encountered in terms of, and I'm not setting Lorelei up to say everything has been so great in terms of being a working mom, but she had an experience that if we could bottle that and send it around to all the top organizations to let them know what kind of energy and attitude would serve working moms and therefore serve their entire organization, I think that that would be really great. So maybe that's one of the things that we should address first, Jordan. I don't know. Do you think that's a good?
Yeah, let's do that. Lorelei, what's the experience been like for you, and can you share some of that recent experience in that on-site meeting and what that meant to you?
Yes, I would love to. I've been lucky to be working with some people and working in a company that are very, very supportive, and all through COVID. And yeah, I can appreciate what Michelle's saying about the challenges of being a working mother, and having done it for this long. That feeling of overwhelm, that you have to hide who you are, and to be on a level, to level the playing field. You really have to uh, pretend, and not let home life interfere with your career, and not let it affect other people in the workplace.
Lorelei, that just, I want to sort of underscore what you just said, because I think that was that it just encapsulated everything that I've been hearing from people. You have to hide who you are.
Yeah.
And then as I talk to women, it's like, but motherhood is such an enormous part of who I am, as is my career. Like, these are really driven, ambitious women that I talk to. But in order to feel safe and to feel seen and to feel relevant, they're having to hide this really enormous aspect of their life. You have to hide who you are. Like, imagine that. Like, that's just 2022.
Yeah, well, it wasn't 22 when I was sort of taught that was the expectation. Like, if you're choosing to have a career and also be a mother, that is your choice, and you have to accept the challenges that come with that. And so what isn't said is that you can't really expect special treatment or help along the way. So with this excellent culture that I've been so lucky to be a part of, I'm learning how to give myself that grace, and to accept that it's okay to have challenges, and to not be perfect, and perhaps late for an important meeting on site. When we first went into COVID and went into lockdown, and the daycares were closing, and my daughter was 3 at that point, it's like, I can't work without daycare. Like, this is not going to happen. I'm not going to succeed. I'm going to fail. And the reassurance that I got, and the support that I got, and the learning that this is okay, and then a new challenge would come up, and it's like, virtual junior kindergarten and working at home. Like, okay, this is not going to work. This is not going to be okay. It was okay. And it's been a great learning experience. As terrible as COVID has been, it's really pushed me to accept that things don't have to be perfect, and they still work, and there's things we can still be successful without being perfect.
And you can acknowledge all parts of yourself, right?
Yes.
Like, it's just like, I love that word. First, you have to accept it. And I think that's the biggest struggle for women, because to your point, we were taught, have been taught, and in some ways continue to be taught, that it's your choice. You decided to have children and work. It's your choice. Cope with it. Of course, I'm emphasizing the word your choice. Um, it's interesting that that's our choice. But, anyways, I digress.
Yeah.
When the fact is that the statistics show that without women in the workplace, like if we think we have a resource issue now, I don't know if anybody's been in an airport recently or a restaurant recently or gone into any organization recently. And the number one thing that we're hearing is there are no resources. We don't have enough people. Okay, get it. That's interesting. And if we don't support working mothers, you think you have a resource problem now. It is no longer just my issue. If you, as an employer, want intelligent, powerful, creative, tenacious, loyal, nurturing people on your workforce, it's now our problem. It's our problem. And how do we, take those patriarchal rules of engagement of the corporate America that when they were designed and implemented as the golden standard, women weren't in the workplace as much. It's time for us to make new standards. And, that means if you're homeschooling and your child runs into the screen, hi, what are you doing? You need to ask mommy a question? Do you need a snack? Okay, we'll talk to you. Like, it's not awful. It's not unprofessional. It doesn't denote your lack of pride and commitment to the job. It just means, look at how amazing I am. I'm managing the duality of both. So rather than making it unprofessional and a real blight on someone's career, what if we all started to say, oh my God, there goes somebody I want on my team because she's raising our next generation and she's finding a way to make an impact at work, and her ability to be in that duality and constantly juggle. How do I support that woman? Could you imagine what would happen if we shifted the mindset that way? So, Lorelei, what happened when you, right? Because, hybrid, which we've talked a lot about on this podcast, you guys you hadn't been in person for a long time, and then you had a big on-site meeting, right? Like a strategy meeting.
I did. So yeah, the next new challenge of COVID is as hybrid, and my daughter has to adjust to each new sort of phase of these changes. And I had been out of the house more than usual, and I had, been at a meeting in the evening. Some people that came from out of state and came to visit us. And that was a great opportunity. And the next morning, we had the big strategy meeting. And she should have, I wasn't there to tuck her in. And
Right, because
I just,
she started as a 3-year-old during COVID,
yeah,
and then just like all of us who have gotten pets during COVID, they learned a new, like in her really critical formative years, she learned a set of behaviors, like mommy's here, mommy's
yes.
always here.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't actually leave the house.
Yeah, exactly.
And now she's 5 and mommy's going out for a really long dinner. And then the next morning she's supposed to be leaving the house again.
Yeah, and so she should have been asleep, and I was gonna, sort of slip out of the house early, but it just became a crisis for her, and heard me moving about and woke up early, so she was short on sleep and really grumpy, and having very big feelings. And I, I, it was, it was not something that my husband could look after because this was about mommy, and I dealt with it, and as soon as I could, got ready and got in the car and sent a quick text and headed off already late to my meeting, and got a phone call on the way, just checking in to make sure that I was okay. Not normal for me to be so late. And
No, for the listeners, you have to understand that Lorelei is like the early one, really driven to perfection and performance. So, right, that's your
I like
reputation.
I like when things go to plan, and it's unusual if things don't. And it is very stressful for me when things don't go to plan, which, you know, makes having children challenging anyway, because they seldom
Right.
go to plan.
Right.
So, you know, very tense, very stressed and anxious. And going into the meeting, it's like I'm telling myself, this is not the end of the world. This is okay. This is, you know, truly not the end of the world.
How late were you?
And I was 42 minutes late.
I think now we understand Lorelei's mindset. Not 40 minutes late, not 45 minutes late, 42 minutes late.
And they, you know, did a quick. Ran into the meeting. They did a quick catch me up to where they were, and we continued. And part of the meeting was talking about our culture, and I just had to share how meaningful it was to me. For, you know, I was not even asked why I was late, or, you know, it didn't disrupt the meeting, and I didn't feel that eyes were on me. It's like, this is what you get to when you hire a mother. I just felt accepted and supported, and that was so powerful. It means so much to me to 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 be able to feel that this isn't the end of the world. You know, it's just late for a meeting. It's put it in perspective, and that
your
grace.
Colleagues, grace, right? Yes. I'm afforded grace, which then lets me afford even more grace to my child. It's a really beautiful thing, and such a simple thing, Lorelei. So we always think of like policies and procedures, and, you know, how do we formalize this approach? Grace is a really great word. What if we
So powerful,
simple, and filled you right up? So, you know, you get out of bed, you start to have this very stressful morning.
yes.
And it's that torn feeling. You know, what I haven't heard Lorelei say is, my child's having big feelings, and as a mother, I'm working with her to manage those big feelings, but now I'm torn because I also have to go to work. So I'm in that divide of, who do I have to be as a mother? Who do I have to be as an employee, as a leader in the organization? And it's always the duality. Women are, you know, they wake up in the morning and they're like, I'm not enough, because how in God's name do I fulfill all of my obligations? So I'm starting the day as, there's not enough of me. I'm never going to be able to meet all my obligations. And then your colleagues surrounded you with, hey, Lorelei, hope everything's okay, right? Great. And oh, here, let's catch up. This is what we were just talking about in those 42 minutes. I think one of the things that I certainly have experienced in all of these conversations is the absence of the word grace. And I want to point something out, which is a little painful, which is, sometimes the very people who you expect to extend you grace are the ones that don't. So one of the patterns that I'm finding is that working mothers are hardest on other working mothers. Now, I don't want to make this I'm not saying it's a women's issue only. It's an organizational issue. But I think because as working moms, we've set this standard of hiding this part of yourself, that then when we're engaging with other working moms, we sort of already have the wall up, and we put the same pressure on others that we've been putting on ourselves. So it's
Yeah,
the
we've
right.
accepted that as this is the norm. It's as the standard. It's a cultural issue. Um, yeah, like if you know, back a few years ago, when you read some advice about how to be successful in the business world, one of the pieces of advice that I read is like, don't feed people. Like you really
What does that mean? Don't feed people.
uh, don't express that part of yourself. Don't,
Oh,
bring in cookies to the office. Like it sets you apart as, it reinforces that aspect, that division, that difference, that duality, right? And it's, if you want to make it, if you want to fit in, if you want to be taken seriously, you're not bringing in cookies to the office.
Yeah, don't feed
Um,
people because that means you're a nurturing mother.
yeah.
And the odd thing about, it, Jordan, I can't remember what podcast we talked about this in, but it's this whole idea of don't cry in the office. And I have long believed since I was in my 30s, so a long time, that when women started coming to my office and crying and they apologized, I was like, absolutely not. This is the power of who you are. Your ability to feel emotions and express emotions at such a deep level is actually your power suit, in my opinion.
yeah. Yeah, agreed. And it does, Lorelei, as a male, it kind of hurts to hear that, you're, and a lot of working moms are hiding kind of that part of their home life, because we always speak about even mental health and how you bring your kind of your whole self into the office. And to Michelle's point about resources, I think I read in the US, it's 41% of workers are parents. Single mothers have increased by 4% in recent years. And even 91% of working Americans in a recent survey, they said they understand that mothers bring unique skills like communication, multitasking, and remaining calm when they're under fire. So there's a lot of incredible
I love that one.
skills.
I love that one because there's no woman who knows how to maintain calm than someone who's got a toddler at home, right? Like she's having big feelings. And the truth is, you were having big feelings at the same time because you feel like you're letting your daughter down. But it's like, okay, this is how I'm going to demonstrate to her that we're just staying in the moment. We're going to learn how to self-regulate. I love that one. I love that one.
Yeah, and then there's some other ones I heard in Lorelei. I don't know if you experienced any of this, but Forbes had an article and it was like, what are some of the things leaders and employers can do to help working mothers? And one was providing adequate pumping space. The second was like encouraging communities of working mothers and working parents, updating their parental leave policy, especially in the US. In the past 3 years, paternity leave in the US has increased from 4 to 6 weeks, but maternity leave is still really stuck at 10 weeks, which is just shocking.
In the
Canada's
US, yeah.
61 weeks, I believe. And number 4 was having a plan to reintegrate new mothers into your company, because companies and leaders, we always focus on orientation and how people start a job, but I don't know how much we focus, and we should focus on how to reorient people to the workplace.
So interesting, Jordan, I have to tell you, because I've been dealing with a lot of new mothers coming back from mat leave. And there's some pretty disappointing stories out there. So one woman that I know, now what I can't remember is if she took 3 months mat leave or 6 months. I can't remember. Anyways, less than she was allowed. Um, Finance industry, so heavily male dominated field. And she was assured that she would have a nursing station when she came back, because it was absolutely critical, obviously. And upon her first day at work, discovered that there wasn't a nursing station. They'd simply put a table in a bathroom. So I just like, let's just like really sit with this for a second, right? You've got a beautiful infant that you're leaving at home. You're pulled to your career because you're ambitious and bright, right? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna manage both of this, and my work is saying that they're going to support me in this, and you put a table in a toilet room. Devastating.
It's not enough.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to pump the nutrition for my child. That would be like me taking a salad into a toilet room. But isn't it right? Here I am. I'm just having my lunch in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Would any of us do that?
No.
No. And then no, to your point, Jordan, no integration. So what would a simple policy be like to integrate mothers back into the workplace? How do we catch them up? Like Lorelei, you said in this meeting, right? They just caught me up. And if you take 6 months, or if you take a year, or if you take 3 months, things have changed. Like organizationally, you have to understand the organization's point of view as well. That we'll give you maternity leave. We support maternity leave because women are a critical part of our workforce. And the world has to keep turning. Like we all understand that, right? So we still try and grow the organization, grow the profits. But what's our re-onboarding process for returning? And I'm going to say mothers because it's still usually mothers instead of parents, because my experience would be that paternity leave is still, and I hear this all the time, unfortunately, we have access to paternity leave, particularly in Canada. But as a man, if you take paternity leave, you do so knowing that you will be the brunt of locker room jokes. And that is the reality still in 2022. Right?
Yeah. It is.
It's not.
You know
Go
what's
ahead, Jordan, sorry.
interesting? I read Google, they increased their leave policy for maternity leave. It's not huge, but they increased it from 12 to 18 weeks, and it actually cut the rate at which new mothers quit by half within the organization.
Say that again.
So they increased their leave policy, or mat leave policy, from 12 to 18 weeks. And the rate at which mothers quit was cut in half. Now that's a US based headquarters.
But that's it. Like, what an impact, right?
That tells a story.
It tells a story, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper to re-onboard somebody who knows your organization, knows your culture, and is a contributor than it is to go out and hire and train, right? Like, what's the investment of sourcing new talent and then training new talent versus let's take the talent that we have and just make them feel loved and accepted. So, for me, I think, like we're hearing in our conversation, I always sort of catalog what the learning points are. And I think as a leader, as a decision maker in an organization, first and foremost, connect to the concept of grace. And that is a gift from Lorelei, that concept of grace. And what is grace? Like, if we were to describe that word of grace, how would we describe that? Lorelei, like, what's grace to you?
Be gentle with yourself and be forgiving and accept what is, and make space for being who you are.
Space, acceptance, gentleness, forgiveness. All of those are energetic components of this word grace. I would add understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would add understanding. And so as a male, and this is hard, Jordan, right? Like, you're our testosterone on the call today. Although I've been told I have more than a lot of men, but anyway, that's a different podcast.
Yeah.
As a male leader, which is still the reality of corporate America, right? Organizations are led by males predominantly. how do I get into a state of grace? How do I generate understanding for working moms? So if you're a leader or leadership adjacent or a leadership influencer, what I would encourage everybody to do is to, as a male leader, go out, sit, and listen to working moms. One question needs to be asked. What has your experience been like as a working mother? And then be quiet and just listen, because what you're going to hear is going to hurt your heart. It's going to hurt your heart. So that's a simple technique for anybody. Get the working moms together in your organization. Ask the question, how has it been? And just sit and listen. Step number one. Step number two, celebrate working moms. You know, that whole concept of hiding self, like I had to hide a part of myself. I don't know, you know how we sort of during June, we have Pride Month, because what we're saying is I'm going to celebrate who I am. I'm no longer hiding it, and I'm going to hang flags out, and I'm going to be loud. Is anybody singing the Jennifer Lopez song in their head right now? I don't know. Do we identify offices or cubicles of working mothers in a celebratory way? Meaning, here's a badass bitch who can do a lot of things and juggle a lot of things, instead of, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to draw attention to this concept. Or how would you feel if you were identified now as a working mom, Lorelei?
How would I feel? As in, it's not, at this stage, it's not such a negative.
Excuse me.
It's not being identified as a working mom is no longer feels like a negative label.
Is it like that? I want to give that gift to every woman.
Yeah, that's great. And you know what, Michele, when you were speaking about the steps and you guys were speaking about grace, there's somebody that I have close in my life who's an amazing teacher and educator, and who's been with a private school for 8 years. And she just wants to be able to not maybe for a year coach sports after, but coaching sports is part of the culture and everyone has to do it and be a part of that. But the problem is she doesn't get home to, her 2.5-year-old until, 7 some nights. And it just doesn't work for her right now. And, the person who's in charge of the organization, who's loved by the board, believes that working at this organization is a 24-hour type of role. But my comment to her and feedback was just ask if for 2 semesters you could take that time off to spend more time with your child, because they don't want to lose you. And then it goes into the world of like, well, if they allow that person to do that, it's going to set a precedent, and there's other working moms there that probably want that. But it's quite unfortunate that someone's put in that situation.
Super unfortunate. And yes, it is going to create a precedent. And yay!
Yeah, exactly.
Let's create that precedent. And I'm interested, Jordan, is you said private school?
Yes. Yep.
Male or female private school?
It's co-ed.
Oh, co-ed. Okay, cool.
Male leader.
Male leader.
Yeah, who's also had children, but I think they're just far removed from it, right? And they now have kids in their mid-20s, so they can focus all their energy on that institution.
And I think, if we step away from what leaders can do, because I do believe, listening to moms and their needs versus this is our our doctrine, this is our policy, and we feel like we're doing the right thing. Well, think about what you're teaching males and females in that school. The reality is women are unique and distinct from men, and as much as, God bless the trailblazers who created pathways for women to get into the workplace. But I think it's time for us really to embrace, not that we're the same as men and we can do what men do, but really, really embrace we are different from men and we can make a unique and impactful contribution as women and as working mothers. And then how do the policies need to shift? We don't have to mimic male behavior, male attitudes, male societal structures. We have to start to create new ones. And what is the ramification and the cascade effect on all those young minds where we're like, yeah, men rock, men are awesome. Here are all the great things that men can do. And women rock. They're amazing and they're unique and they're distinct.
And
So
doing that, part of the cascade effect will be that other people are recognized for, their dual roles as well. It's not only working moms. Everybody will benefit from it. Everybody has a story. Everybody has, a home life and challenges. I went through, in between children, looking after my mom when she was sick and when she passed. That was also a very difficult, time to manage home and career.
love that point, Lorelei. Like that's right, because that's the reality of our lives. And I like this about the pandemic. I'm going to say we were forced to confront that our lives cannot be compartmentalized. They can't. And we have worked very hard to create infrastructures that compartmentalize our lives, and they cannot be. I, for 5 years, cared for 2 dying parents. And I still, I mean, it was 5 years ago that my father passed away. And I got to tell you, I still have a twitch when older people get sick because it impacted me so much. And we have to make space for the unique attributes of all of our lives and stop making policies and procedures based on the people that don't show up. Like organizationally, we make a lot of policies and procedures because we're afraid of people taking advantage or a few people abuse the system. And then we make policies to mitigate that risk versus, 80% of us, 90% of us don't abuse the system. Let's make the rules about those people who were showing up and really making enormous contributions. And then our policies should just be about sourcing out those people who are abusing the system versus making us all live with the impact.
Yeah, and back to Jordan's example, let's not create cultures that require a 24/7 commitment. It's not possible. It's not healthy.
That's not healthy. Let's not create
healthy.
cultures. Wow, eh? Oh, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? We're gonna have to send her this podcast, and maybe she can just casually slip it into a DM or something.
I will. She'll be glad I did not mention the place. But
Right?
I think there was so many important things that there said. Space, Grace, Lorelei, thank you so much for being on here and sharing your story and being vulnerable with us. And I know Michele and I appreciated it, and the listener as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just, Jordan, just as we wrap up, I want to say one last thing, which is, I talked about leaders getting together with your working moms and listening and cultivating states of grace. We can do that in our individual lives as well. And so if working moms take a minute and just see them. I mean, if you want to offer some help of some sort, that's a great step too. But step one is, I see you and I know that it's hard and I think you're doing a great job. And that was the power of when I met with all these women recently. Just when I expressed empathy and understanding of how hard it is to juggle what they're juggling, they were able to exhale and let some of that stress out. And so if you as a friend or as a family member or as a colleague can connect with a working mother and just see them and acknowledge their experience, will start to shift energy around how we can celebrate working mothers instead of creating punitive environments. And that's certainly the hope that I hold for all working moms at this time. Again, Lorelei, thank you so much for your story and for agreeing to come on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fun. Thanks.